I thought I was untouchable, man. Like, really believed it. In a small town where everybody knows everybody, I thought that I was always one step ahead of everything. You know, the cops, the consequences, all of it. I thought that I was just untouchable. Until one phone call changed everything. My little brother, okay, calls me. My phone rings and it's a number that I don't recognize. I pick it up. It's my little brother calling me from the bus driver's phone telling me, Joey, there's 20 cops at our house. What am I supposed to do? At that moment, I knew that my life just flipped on its head. Welcome to the Gandee Show. If you're new here, this is not a cleaned up version of anything. This is the real, raw story, so lock in. Today, I want to walk you through a part of my life where I went from feeling untouchable to realizing that I wasn't in control of my own life anymore. Small town, bad decisions, addiction, and a system that does not really care who you are or where you are when it catches up to you. I grew up in a small town, everyone knows everyone. Like, I don't know, a couple hundred kids in my graduating class type small. So when you start getting into trouble, everybody knows it's you. They just can't always prove it, right? And for a while, that became my identity for a long while. I was always one step ahead, slipping through the cracks, always thinking that I was smarter than the situation at hand. And honestly, at that time, that feeling fed me. It fed my ego. It fed this false perception of who I thought I was. It made me feel like I was somebody, like I had control over something in my own life, if that makes sense. I now know that, that was not control. It was luck, and that luck was running out. Then one day, I'm just driving, doing my normal thing, thinking I was somebody, selling weed in my small town like an idiot. And, my phone rings, unknown number, right? It's my little brother, and he's using the bus driver's phone, and he says, Joey, there's like 20 cops at our house. What do I do? And in that moment, everything just stops. It was like I was in slow motion. And when I snapped out of it, I immediately was like, put the bus driver on the phone. So he hands the bus driver the phone, and I'm like, drop him off around the corner, because, technically I was old enough to be his guardian. So I was able to tell his bus driver where to take him. You're not really supposed to drop kids off that's, at a place that's not their address unless they have written consent. But like I said, small town, this was a long time ago. Things are different now, right? And in that moment, everything just stops, like I said, right? No more thinking that I've got time, just instant reality. Instant reality check right there. The police were not guessing anymore. They weren't circling anymore. They were already there. And I wasn't home, right? I was not at home when this happened. So, now I know I'm not just dealing with suspicion anymore. This is real. From there, everything starts to move fast. I get caught up in a situation that turns into burglary charges, okay? I remember sitting there thinking, like, this cannot be real. This cannot be my life. They were talking like I was facing 20 plus years, because I did commit the crime that they were at my house for, but there was also a string of other crimes that were similar to the crime I committed in my area that was unsolved. So, they were talking about putting all of them on me. And I'm 18, scared out of my mind. My life's, in my head, my life's over. This is it for me. I'm gonna spend the foreseeable future in prison. And I remember thinking too, like, if I go to prison, man, I'm gonna have to join a gang. I'm getting sprayed up head to toe, and I'm gonna join a gang. That's how I'm gonna survive in there, right? 18 years old, trying to understand how my whole life just got put on pause like that. And what I didn't understand then was how fast the system escalates things when it already thinks it knows who you are. And once you're in it, you realize pretty quickly that you do not control the pace anymore. First time in jail, no detox, no nothing. See, like at this time I wasn't on hard drugs yet, okay? I was just smoking a bunch of pot. And middle of the night, and I remember thinking that I have to act a certain way in here. I'm not a very big guy, so I have to make people think I'm crazy or something, so they're not going to beat me up. I don't know what I was thinking. I remember, like, so you see movies and you see like, you hear stories about people going to jail or prison for the first time, and they're like, I found the biggest guy in there and I walked straight up to him and I knocked him out, right? So that's what my idea is. Like, that's what I'm thinking. I got to do something like that or I'm going to get my butt handed to me, right? So like I said, I remember thinking that I had to act a certain way or I had to be something that I wasn't just to survive it, right? But the reality is most of the fear was just in my head, as it usually is in my life, right? I'm an addict or an alcoholic, so I like to catastrophize things in my head. Things are usually never as bad as I think they're going to be. And the same goes for this situation. The system felt massive and the people inside felt different than what I had expected. Okay, so slowly I started adapting instead of panicking. Even the smallest things became a routine, and that's when I realized that this is not a movie. This is life now, unless something changes for me. Eventually, I take a plea deal, attempted burglary, felony 5 at 18 years old, and I'm the only one out of everyone involved that walked away with that on my record. I know now that it's because out of the three of us that were involved in the situation, I was the poorest, okay? My parents didn't have no money to get me a lawyer. So, of course, I'm the one who walked away with a felony out of everyone, right? It is what it is, but, that is when it starts sinking in for me. Not just jail or probation, but long-term consequences. Housing, jobs, how people see you, right? One thing that I'll never forget, my dad told me when I was young, him and I never really had a relationship, but I do remember him telling me, once you're labeled a thief, that will follow you around for the rest of your life. People don't care what the situation was in reality. On paper, it says that you're a thief. That's going to follow you around until you're dead, till after you're gone, right? And, he was right. Catch me getting myself in that situation and having that felony in my record, it completely changed the trajectory of my life. I missed out on many opportunities for gainful employment. I know now today that it's easier to find a job when you have felonies on your record, but back then it was a little different. Okay, I'm 36 now, I was 18 at the time. And at that time, I'm still trying to live like nothing has changed, right? I'm still smoking. Even though I was on probation, I couldn't quit smoking pot for the life of me. And luckily my case wasn't drug related. So they did drug test me the first time I went and see my probation officer, but I never got tested again after that. And that's the only reason why I completed that probation successfully, because if they had continued to drug test me, I would have never passed. I would have never passed. And God, that was so stressful too. I remember, every month thinking, I got this much time. I need to stop smoking on this day and start drinking this much water. That day would come. I wouldn't stop smoking until literally the day of that I'm supposed to be there. And I'd go in there panicking, trying to beat the system, trying to play the game. And the facts are, the only reason why I got through that probation is because they didn't drug test me again after that. I'm still trying to outsmart the system that I'm already inside of. People think that probation is freedom, right? It's not. It's pressure. Like I just explained, every appointment I was riddled with anxiety, thinking that this is going to be the time where they haul me back to jail. Every test I'm trying to plan. I wasn't trying to recover, okay? I was trying to avoid getting caught. And that takes so much energy. It was not they are trying to help me. It was me versus them. That's the mentality I had. And I really believe that. It was not us, or them on my team. It was me versus them. And that is just, it is so stressful. Going off topic for a minute, the last time I got arrested, the last time I'll ever have to get arrested was April 19th of 2023. And this was when, sobriety finally stuck for me. And I stopped trying to play that game. And probation went from being a stressful thing to something that I actually looked forward to. And that might sound wild to some of you, okay? But there really are people that want to help us and they don't want anything from us. Living life in active addiction, it's completely transactional. And it took a long time for me to break that mindset. So going back to what we're talking about, I was not trying to recover then. I was trying to avoid getting caught, and luckily, I'll be honest, I got lucky more than once. Okay? I even got lucky the first and only time they drug tested me. Listen to this madness. So, I go in there for the first time to meet my probation officer. She was this older woman named Roberta. And, we go in, we have the appointment, we get to the end, I'm thinking, all right, I'm about to go. And she's like, oh, before you leave, I might as well collect a urine sample from you. And I'm like, Roberta, what do you mean? My case isn't drug related. I'm trying to talk my way out of it, right? Before it even happens. And she's like, yeah, all right, here, go in the bathroom. Do not run the sink and do not flush the toilet. Man, I'm panicking because of course I had THC in my system. I'm panicking though, right? I remember calling my mom thinking that she was going to be able to help me out of the situation. Like, come on, dude, right? And so, I was stalling, acting like I didn't have to pee. Give me some water. I'll drink some water. I don't have to pee. I peed before I came in here. Just prolonging the inevitable. And finally, when I didn't have any more time to push this off, I had to go in there and pee in the cup. So I go in there and I'm looking around. I'm like, what can I do? How can I get myself out of this, right? And as God is my witness, what I ended up doing was I ended up peeing in the cup just a little bit, just enough to make it look yellow, like pee. And then I took the cup and I scooped it in the toilet and I put toilet water in there. And I put the lid on and I walked out and I handed it to her like nothing even happened, right? And she's looking at it. She peels the sticker and she's like, okay, you didn't come up positive for anything. And she's like, wait a minute. The temperature's not registering on here. She's like, you tampered with this. And I'm like, Roberta, what do you mean? Right? What do you mean, Roberta? Saying her name. Like, come on, dude. And she's like, I'm like, Roberta, you searched me before I went in there. How could I have possibly tampered with it, right? And I'm going back and forth with her. And for whatever reason, she's just like, just go. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I got away with that. And for whatever reason, she did not drug test me again after that. I got so lucky, which, I know now that it would have been better for me if I got caught. I didn't believe that at the time. Like I said, it was me versus them. But I know now that I'm more than 3 years removed from any mood or mind-altering substance, that the best thing that could have happened to me if I would have got caught then and there. Maybe it wouldn't have took me till I was 33 to get sober and understand my true identity and who I was, which, isn't who I thought I was at this time that I'm telling you about. So like I said, I got lucky more than once, and luck isn't a strategy though, and eventually you realize that, okay? And, you know, while this is happening, everything at home starts to collapse too. You know, we lost the house because, you know, the house that we were living in when the cops raided, when every cop in Jefferson, Ohio was at my house, it was a rental. So, and like I said, small town, all the neighbors are outside watching this happen. So it doesn't take long for word to get back to our landlord, and me having our door kicked in breached the lease contract. So we got kicked out of there. You know, I end up couch surfing and living in my car. Okay. I remember the last conversation I had with my dad on the phone, you know, after all this happened. He tells me, "You brought hell on this household. Do not ever come back here." And as an 18-year-old, that wrecked me, dude. That wrecked me. You know, I can't blame this on him because, you know, I'm not a victim anymore. I'm able to look at my part in things today. So I know that this happened. This was my doing. Okay, but at that time, I don't think that I knew that. You know, I was angry. And one of the main reasons why I even got myself in that situation is because, you know, one day my dad calls me into the basement and he tells me, you know, he was a tree cutter. He climbed trees and cut trees down for a living the whole time I ever knew him. And, you know, he calls me down there and he tells me, "Son, I'm not going to be working for the next 3 months. So you need to do something to bring some food or some money into this household for your little brother." That's what he told me. And at the time I was already selling weed, and he knew that. He says, "I don't care what you do." He already knew that I was selling drugs, okay? But what that did for me is that just opened the floodgates. You know, I started going even harder than I was already going. I got another phone and I started telling people, "I don't care if it's for $2. If you need something, call me. I'll bring it to you. I don't care if it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Call me. I'll bring it to you," right? So then, you know, what ends up happening is, like, my buddy calls me one morning and he says, "Hey, I got a job for you to do. You know, there's $50 in it for you." I'm like, "Say less. When and where?" You know, and he was dating this chick at the time that was from Pennsylvania. And I guess they stopped talking. Well, unbeknownst to me, this friend of mine, he was on drugs. He was on harder drugs than I was on. I was just a pothead at that time. Well, you know, he tells me that he leaves his wallet in her grandparents' house right in the middle of town. And he said, "If you go," he said, "I'm not allowed back there anymore. If you go get the wallet, I'll give you $50. I'm like, "Okay." So I have my buddy drive me there, and it's 11 o'clock in the morning. And long story short, what ends up happening is I burglarize these people's home. You know, on the way there, throughout that process, I didn't know that that's what I was going to do. But once I got in there, I immediately knew that something was wrong. And, you know, what I just went over is what the result was of me, you know, breaking into that house. You know, I suffered the consequences. Like I said, out of all three of us that were involved, I was the only one who got a felony. So, you know, but everything happens the way it does because it has to. If things did, I wouldn't even, today I wouldn't even take that back. I feel bad for the terror that I caused on that family, you know, whose house I broke into, because that's evil. Who, you know, I made them feel unsafe. They weren't there when it happened, but it happened. I broke in their house. I made those people feel unsafe in their own home. I couldn't imagine if somebody did that to me today. I feel terrible remorse for that, you know, but I know that that had to happen in order for me to be who I am today. So for that reason, I couldn't change that, you know. So like I said, you know, back to the story. Sorry, I get off track. So, and at this time, everything starts to fall apart. We lost the house. My family went their separate ways. You know, my mom ends up taking my brother and they go stay with my grandma. And I don't know where my dad went. And I'm living in my car and couch surfing, right? So my dad tells me, "You brought hell to this household. Do not ever come back here." And as an 18-year-old kid, that wrecked me, dude. But I understand now that he was sick too, you know. I spent a lot of my years angry, at both my mom and my dad, and at myself. But I know that, they did the best they could with what they had. And not only were they sick then, but they're still sick today. My mom is still actively addicted to heroin. My dad is still actively homeless right now, addicted to something. I don't know what, because I haven't seen him in a few years, but I believe in the power of prayer. So please, if you're watching this, put my mom and my dad in your prayers, please. And my brother. I'm worried about my brother too. Please put them in your prayers. I would really appreciate it. My mom, my brother, my dad, everyone split apart and nobody had stability, right? Somehow, I was still trying to pretend that I was fine. And looking back now, the craziest part isn't the arrest. It was how long I didn't realize that I was not okay. And how long I didn't realize what was actually happening to my family. That was the last time we were ever together as a family. That was it. And you better believe I feel totally responsible for that. I spent a lot of years believing that I was the sole reason why my family split apart and is no longer a family anymore. I said last episode that, that was going to be my best episode, but I'm thinking this is going to be the one, dude. This is probably the most authentic I've been able to be on camera with you guys. So I'm interested to see how this episode performs. And I hope that you guys engage with it. What was crazy was how long it took me to realize what was actually happening, okay? I thought I was in control. I thought I was ahead. I thought I was untouchable. But really, I was just in a system that was always going to catch up with me eventually. And it did. If this story hits you in any way, I need you to know something. You are not alone in this, man. You are not alone in this. I'm here. I show up and do this every week. I work a full-time job. And before I posted my first video on YouTube, I didn't even know how to use a computer. I taught myself how to do this. I taught myself how to edit these videos, and I'm not going to stop doing this. You are not alone. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I've been doing this for a while now. We're over 30 episodes in, and sometimes I feel like I'm not getting anywhere, right? 'Cause my shorts do well, but my long form videos, they don't get many views. And sometimes it feels like I'm just spinning my wheels and I'm talking to nobody, but I'm not going to stop doing this because I really believe that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I really believe that. I really believe that God preserved my life through heroin addiction so I could talk like this, okay? And I need you to know, too, that if you're in that cycle right now, there is a way out of it. I promise you. I was of the most hopeless kind of alcoholic and addict. And man, I wouldn't trade my life today for anything, okay? We are building something here with the Gandee Show, and I want you to be a part of it, please. Journals, guided meditations, testimony submissions, Sunday Zoom groups, everything is linked in the description of this video, okay? If you got a story, I need to hear from you. I want to add another segment to this show, and I need your guys' help with it. I want you guys to send me in your story. I don't care where you're at. I don't care if you're in the middle of addiction or if you've got a story of redemption. I want to hear from you. Recovery changed for me when I heard somebody on stage tell my story that I did not know. Our testimonies can save somebody's life. Your story can save somebody's life. That is an incredible, incredible, beautiful thing. And I'm asking you guys to please be a part of this, okay? Like I said, if you've got a story, please send it in, okay? Because this platform is not just mine. It is ours. I want to share this thing, man. I want you guys to know that I'm showing up here consistently every week. Even if my videos get 5 views, I'm still going to keep doing this, all right? This episode, I can't wait to see what this one does, man. I appreciate you guys. If you made it this far in the video, and even if you didn't, I love you. And I will see you in the next one. I'm out. In a small town where everybody knows everybody. I thought I was always one step ahead of everything. Come on, dude. I thought I was untouchable, man. Like, really believed it. Come on, dude. To realizing that I wasn't even in control, and a system that really doesn't care. So when you start getting into trouble, everybody know it. It fed the false. And I remember there's, and I'm going back and forth with her, and I'm going.